right. This, I think, was the second to last time I'm going to be doing this route from inside a room and not at home. I think one more night, then we're on the plane, and then we've got a direct flight home for 16 hours, I think, or 17 hours. And that's all she wrote. We're back in action. I'm actually looking forward to get home. There's a lot of exciting things happening at home. It's almost to the point where we're almost on the verge of maybe even being possibly to say we're proud of being Canadian again soon. And as well as I'm sure my neighbors feeling the same thing about their country and a couple others with what's going on. With what is going on. It's amazing. I hope the ball that has started to roll is going to roll the whole way home. And I hope as well that it's a sign that good is going to win and honesty is going to win. Wouldn't that be frickin' exciting? Anyway, I'll touch more on those topics later, but I know a lot of you out there know what I'm talking about. So, that's a short little rantaroo. Now, lighting my suck in here, whatever. It is what it is. I'm going to deal with what I got, and I'm going to get some more voices heard. More voices heard. Now, listen to this. This is titled Possible Encounters and a Little Perspective. Hi, Steve. Thank you for all that you do. I know your channel isn't for entertainment, quote, but it is entertaining. But along with being entertaining, it's educational. My encounters are pretty benign by comparison. No blood-curdling screams. No tearing my dog in half and throwing it at me. That's damn sure a good way to get yourself shot. My dogs may as well be one of my kids. Same. No arms reaching through windows. Matter of fact, I don't really think I realized there was more to it until I started listening to your stories. I have to admit, at first, a lot of them seemed really woo-woo kooky stuff. And because the mainstream Bigfoot community pushes it's an undiscovered primate narrative, that was always kind of my viewpoint. But the education here is that there is much more to this topic than you can get on your average reality show. Don't you think? For sure. And the fact is, and make no mistake, there's a lot of nuts out there, but there can't be that many kooks out there from around the world who couldn't possibly have met each other, all telling similar stories and behaviors. You're absolutely correct. Just like a detective emailed us and said flat out, as soon as there's 3 similarities, they got a pattern and they go with it. In investigations, right? Only 3. I've had a few different careers over the years. I was an arborist, a pro tree climber, and a forester in my early years, after being diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. Oh, that sucks. I know a few people with that. It's a bad one. Had to find a lower impact gig, so I ran forestry equipment and drove trucks, with a lot of that being on rail. Rail work was awesome because they just get much more remote than anything you can get with a car. Yeah, no doubt. I've said it before, I would love to ride on a train all night long through the Rockies, or BC especially, with a conductor. Sorry, guys. I hate interrupting. With a lot of that being on rail work was awesome because they just get much more remote than anything you can get with a car. And when I managed to get free time, I hunt, fish, prospect, etc., etc. I have a lot more time in the woods than most, even though you'd think the Bigfoot would drop by and have a couple of beers on the weekends. Sorry. Enough that you'd think a Bigfoot would drop by and leave a couple of beers on the weekends. Have a couple of beers. Oh my God, my glasses are... I'll get it. But I'm afraid that my experiences aren't that conclusive. My first was in the Ocala forest. I was working as a forester for the local utility company and used to cruise the primary circuits and high lines for outage hazards and send a crew out to either trim or remove the trees. This incident was just a real awkward, uncomfortable feeling. But for me, I'm not awkward or uncomfortable in the woods. I'm always armed. The Ocala Forest is where the state releases its nuisance bears. Yes, Florida has a huge bear population. They also have a huge nuisance meth head population, and the pistol was really more for them than the bears. But something was just really off, and I had a lot of latitude at my job, so I just left and worked for a different grid and came back later. The next was a little more strange. I was working in Dahlonega, Georgia, which is one of the sites of the U.S.'s first gold rush. Everyone always quotes, "There's gold in them thar hills." That's a quote from the mayor of Dahlonega trying to convince people to stay there when they were all packing up to go to California with the 49ers. I have a small 2.5-inch gold dredge, and the spot I went was kind of marginal whether I should be there, but in those younger, wilder days, it was better to ask forgiveness and permission. So I'm face down in the river, mask and snorkel. Oh, and I hear a big splash and the sound of a fairly big rock hitting the bottom. My first thought was, oops, you're busted. So I come out of the river. To my gear, looked around, and there was no one around, so I just wrote it off and went back to the hole I was working. Still a bit on my toes from the first one, I heard a second rock hit, but sprung to my feet to see some of the splash and the ripples from what I could only guess was maybe a softball to football-sized rock. At that point, I just packed up and left, more because I wasn't exactly sure I was allowed to be there. There's a lot of mixed opinions still whether it's okay to dredge in this spot, but I didn't want an expensive dredge taken away either. But there was no one there to be throwing rocks, and no cars in the lot when I packed out. I had another incident prospecting in Oregon, similar to the first. Just a real weird, uncomfortable, awkward feeling. For no real apparent reason, but my sixth sense has kept me out of trouble in the woods and in, quote, civilization, end quote. But these incidents were all things that stuck in my head. But until I started paying attention to your channel and a couple others and learning about others people's incidents and given locations, they may have been interactions with a sawbay I just never saw. Bracket. The Ocala Forest, North Georgia, and Oregon are all regular customers on the How to Hunt channel, and bracket. I know that was long, but maybe even tedious, but if you always say get it out. So I also would like to include this. In my travels, driving through northern Arizona, about 20 miles west of Flagstaff and in a real heavy snow, I had a Wolverine cross the road in front of me. No mistaking it, it was a Wolverine. Now, I was under the impression that it was pretty rare to see even up around where there's a few punctuation's tough in this one, okay, but I'm getting it. Now, I was under the impression that it was pretty rare to see even up around where you are. You just don't see a lot of them. So I got to my destination and still nearly giddy because I saw something so rare I looked it up on the internet. That verbatim said, quote, while northern Arizona in the higher elevations is part of the Wolverine's range, they haven't had one there in 100 years. So I decided to call Arizona Department of Fish and Wildlife, whatever they call themselves there, and report my Wolverine sighting. Well, I was told, quote, nope, you didn't see a Wolverine. You probably saw a badger or something, end quote. I told the guy, no, I saw a Wolverine. It was unmistakable. About the size of a German Shepherd, maybe a lab. Brown, white, kidney-shaped light spot on the side. It was a Wolverine. Department guy said, no, it wasn't a Wolverine. Maybe it was a stray dog. Now I'm getting pissed. I said, look, man, I know what a Wolverine looks like. You could put pictures of dogs, badgers, and a giraffe, and a platypus, a duck, and a goddamn Wolverine, and I'll point to the Wolverine for you. Then I thought to myself, why am I arguing with this asshole? And hung up. A couple years later, when I was working in Oregon, I was sharing my Wolverine story with a friend and coworker, and he was a big hunter out there, west, and told me this, quote, if that guy acknowledged that you saw a Wolverine, then the state will have to provide protections for them, end quote. That's confusing to me. I tell that story to say this. If some random government jerk would be willing to fight me that hard over Wolverine, what would they do for an undiscovered primate, let alone a potential human offshoot that may be telepathic, can see at night, and may be able to cloak, teleport, or jump in and out of other dimensions at will? Sorry if this is a little too long, but you said to send it all at once, and I did my best to be brief and nutshell version. Hope I didn't run your audience off or bore them to death. Thanks, Steve. Keep giving them hell. And go ahead and use my name if you like. I couldn't give a shit less to. Thanks. What? About anything. Martin Lawler. Okay, Martin, thanks for that, man. Appreciate it. Sounds to me like you possibly had a few run-ins. I wonder when you sent that. When was that? I'll check it later. I've already booked out of that email. But I think it's a while back because I'm in the older email section. Oh, no, this is fresh. Whatever. If you're still hanging out, I thought it was a while back because I know a lot of you guys that go out looking around for gold, you go into middle of nowhere places, right? And I'll bet you there's a lot of guys out there that keep their yips shut. Probably because it freaks them out, but I wonder if as well there's a lot of gold seekers that keep their mouths shut because they don't want to create any attention to where they are, right? I can see that too, right? There's a lot of people that have gone mining and see crazy shit. And as far as Wolverine goes, you know what? I've trapped them. I've seen lots of them. And they are cruisers, man. They go and they don't stop. They're just like, they just go non-stop. And they cover a shit pile of ground. I think we had one from British Columbia make its way to Oregon or some damn thing. But anyway, a big one's only 45 pounds, right? But I'm just not up with the Wolverines. Anyways, babbling. Got here. Who's next? This is titled My Two Stories. Hello, Steve. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I've hunted across the country from... Okay, hold on a minute. One more mention. The thing about the fish and game, too. Sorry. Why even report? I don't report shit to them anymore. I used to. I used to be a part of some conservation groups in British Columbia until I realized that 99.9% of the executive committees were only there so that they could say they were. They were only there because they had a position there and a title. Made me want to puke. So much ego and wanting to be cool and control and have something to say when they didn't even know their asshole from a hole in the ground when it came to wildlife. And furthermore, the head of the Ministry of Wildlife here in British Columbia, who's the boss of all the fish and game wardens, and this is straight from the biologist to me, said flat out, look, we know our office is a joke, it's a shit show, and our boss doesn't even hunt or fish. That's how the government works. They grab some douchebag who didn't get elected somewhere, couldn't make it somewhere else, and they found an opening where they might get him a job, and they stuffed him in that department. Unfortunately for us true conservationists, it's usually some asshole who gets stuffed in charge of fish and game, right? I'll bite my lip. That topic gets me frickin' going. Now, sorry, I'm just saying, screw anybody in the government. Right now, currently, the government, to the curb. Only the people. Only the people. You report to the people. You ask the people. You get confirmation by the people. That's all we got left. That's all actually, I think that's all we've ever had is each other. Right? Moving along. This is titled My Two Stories. Hello, Steve. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I've hunted across the country from Pennsylvania to North Carolina and as far west as Idaho. I was born and raised in Northwest PA. Did I read this? Near Tionesta along the Allegheny River. I currently now reside in Northeast Oklahoma. My girlfriend and I found a place in a remote area in the PA wilderness that resembled a Native American ritual location. All right, I haven't read this. With a giant rock with engravings on it, and the top was perfectly flat with one tree growing up from the center of it. Crazy. As we approached the giant rock, the temperature dropped 20 degrees. What? I noticed all the surrounding trees were twisted and broken over, but left still connected to the trunk, about 10 feet up. The trees were huge. No man or a bear could possibly do this. The whole time it felt like we were being watched. But this is far from the craziest. Early summer 2008, my brother and I were hitting up one of our secret trout fishing spots. It was 10 p.m. Excuse me. We know this hole like the back of our hands. But that night I kept noticing something different up in the top of the tallest tree, as there was a full moon lighting up the forest and the fishing hole. But as I focused my eyes on it, I noticed nothing moving and couldn't hear anything out of the ordinary. My brother yelled across the fishing hole to me that he hooked something big, and to my surprise, he landed a 20-inch rainbow trout. A second later, as I hooked one the same size, and as I was landing it, I hear a sound like thunder from above, and I look up, and this creature is on a dead fall from the top of a 100-foot tall giant hemlock tree. Whoa. Then its wings opened and flapped one time. I swear it sounded like thunder. The winged creature swooped down at my brother and got so close that he dropped to the ground. Next thing I know, this bastard was focused on me and now headed straight towards me. I drew my boot knife because out of the two of us, I've always been the one who's down for a good fight. As it approached me, I could see the body of the creature was near the same size as me, possibly even bigger. This is sounding creepier than shit. I'm 6'1", 220 pounds, a rock-solid country boy, and I'm telling you, this monster was of comparable size. He chose not to try me, but swooped close enough I could feel the wind gust off of its wings. All we could do was watch in shock as the 10-foot wingspan flew out of sight against the full moon. Even after it was gone from sight, we could still hear the thunder coming off of its wings. This being said, "I'm familiar with the bald eagle and the larger owls of our wood." Sorry. I think there's a bit of a typo there. "I'm familiar with the bald eagles and the larger owls of our woods, and this thing dwarfs them in size." My brother and I kept this quiet for years until one night we were getting a buzz on and recalled the event to a friend who immediately started researching on her phone, and she came to the conclusion that we were attacked by the great Pennsylvania Thunderbird. I've not seen it since or even heard of anyone seeing it. I just want to share my story and see if anyone else has had something similar. I'd love to discuss it in more detail sometime, as it's hard to convey the true feelings through text. My name is Ryan Alexander. Feel free to use my name. I don't give a damn what anyone thinks about me or even if anyone believes me. Thanks for hearing me out. I pray all is well. I pray all is well with you and your family. God bless. And I would pray all is well with you too, man. I appreciate that email. Now, let me get back. 10 feet up. Trees were huge. Hold on. I want to get to the part where you described you saw. I noticed something moving. I couldn't hear anything out of the ordinary. My brother. Where'd I go? Okay. I look up and this creature is on a dead fall. Okay, the creature. The winged creature swooped down. I'm just looking for a description. All the description of it. As it approached me, I could see the body of the creature was near the same size as me, possibly even bigger. 6'1", 220. All right. And that's it. No other details. So, this is what I'm after. What else did you see? How about, if you get the time, throw us a detailed description of exactly what you saw. All right. So, I'm guessing if you saw this thing, quote, dwarfing, then you should have seen the perfect outline, right? I'm guessing, I don't know. And none of us are perfect at sharing our experiences right off the bat, right? So I'm not calling you out. I'm just saying, okay, I want to hear more. That's all I'm saying. I want to hear more. So if you can, did you see a shape of a head? Did you see legs? Did you see tail? Tail feathers? Did you see feathers? Did you see shape of head? Shape of body, torso, whatever you got? See what I'm getting at, man? So right now we've got it was bigger than 6'1", 220 and a 10-foot wingspan. What was in between those wingtips? If you want to share that, if you've got more detail to what exactly you were looking at, email me and send it to me, man. All right, because we want to know. and we will find out if someone has seen something similar, which I believe some people have, without a doubt. But I want to hear more. All right? Especially when it comes to being in the outdoors and somebody seeing that kind of crazy shit, and especially if it's coming towards a human being intentionally, right? Sounds creepier as shit to me. I don't know what people have said this before. A lot of people fish at night. I've never done it. Like, is it still that good at nighttime? But I think for me, I mean, I love to be able to, especially like say river fishing. You got to see me river fishing. Like, I want to cast out and see where my gear goes. I want to see the float get hit. I want to see the flash of the silver from steelhead. I want to see the color of a rainbow trout when I bring it up. You know what I mean? I think I'm picturing fishing at nighttime kind of taking a lot of that away from me, but maybe there's something I'm missing out on. It must be fun or something, because a lot of people fish at night, maybe possibly as well as due to it being really hot out where you might be, maybe possibly. Anyway, off topic, sorry. Here we go. This is titled My Name. Excuse me. Hi, Steve. You have read my encounter almost a year ago, and it was in the one titled, quote, From Northern BC, a question, end quote. I was embarrassed to tell my story because of the way it happened. I was the one with my friends that did the massive heavy drinking in New Hampshire. Very remote. And great for what we were doing 20 years ago. But in the early morning of 5:20ish, I had to take a dump. And that's when I saw the 4-foot-tall one staring at me. Embarrassingly. That's why I was chicken shit to say my name. It's been eating at me ever since then, that all these people are strong enough to give their full names, and I pussed out on giving mine. So I just want to say that I don't live in New Hampshire. We just camped there for the weekend, which we went somewhere every weekend with a lot of people. But I can't take it anymore. And I feel like my whole truth is not out there because I was too afraid to back it up with my real name. So, I am from Rhode Island, and my name is Jay Kosher. Sounds like Coucher. Jay Coucher. Thanks, Steve, for everything that you do. We're all in your debt. Take care. I've listened since the very first show and will never stop. Okay, Jay, no big deal. Don't sweat it, man. Don't sweat it. You're not a puss. All right? It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is with this topic, all right? And it's how we have all been programmed from a young age. We've all been programmed to be scared of each other, scared of ridicule, and that's an easy way to get us to fall in line and do whatever the F we're told, okay? So it's not that smooth and easy for people to break free from that. Okay, man? So I will guarantee you there isn't one human being here judging you at all. More or less giving you a big pat on the shoulder and cracking you a cold beer for coming clean for you. You did that for you. It made you feel uncomfortable, not us. It makes you feel better, and that makes me feel better too. All right, man? As long as you're here with us, you're on the team. You're on the team. All right? You're good. I'm just saying you're good. Appreciate you emailing that in. And I'm glad I got to share that for you, all right? Now, let's all move forward together, right? With you too. Jump on the ride. Let's go forward. All right, who's next? Can't wait to get a new pair of shit-eating readers when I get home. These are all scratched to rat shit, so it doesn't help me read. All right, here we go. This is titled Minor Encounter. Steve, came across your YouTube videos a couple of weeks ago. I love them. Very straightforward. I have a desk job and listen to them almost every day while doing scut work. Maybe it means scout work. It's SCUT work. My encounter was more of my son. About 22 years ago when he was 13, I took him to north central Idaho where I grew up for a white-tailed deer hunt. We went to Harris Ridge outside of Kuski. Kooskia, but he says pronounced Kuski, Idaho. I never had any encounter as a kid. We met my brother-in-law and his son, age 14. We drove on Harris Ridge Road to where it meets state land. The gate was closed as elk winter in there, and at a certain point they close it to vehicles. We walked in half a mile or so to where there was a shallow gully to the right and flat meadow with scattered trees to the left. We put our boys on the high ground and each side of the gully and gave them instructions on where it would be safe to shoot. My brother-in-law and I walked back to the border of state land and private, and then followed the fence to the right for about a mile, then spread out and started walking back towards our boys. It was raining lightly. My son gets on the radio and says, "Something is behind me." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "I don't know. It's big and moving slowly until I turn to look and then it stops." Me: "There are cows in here. Be careful not to shoot a cow and stay off the radio. Get ready. We are pushing the deer to you." And his son said, after a couple of minutes, "It's really big and I can hear it moving." He sounded scared. Me: "You have a rifle. Stay alert, but don't shoot unless you're sure it isn't a cow or a person." We see deer running ahead of us, but no shots. My brother-in-law and I reach the boys. They are together on one side of the gully, not paying attention to the deer running by at the bottom of the gully. I'm aggravated and wet, shaking my head. And I say, "The deer went this way." And we split up and, I say, "The deer went this way." And we split up and followed those very narrow but dirt floor trails that cows leave in the meadows. We walk until we hit deep, thick timber and stop. We sling our rifles and head for the pickup. My son joins us and says, "I think Shaq is walking around here barefoot." Me: "What are you talking about?" My son: "Again, I think Shaq is walking around here barefoot." He had a bad habit of talking in the abstract and would deflect when pushed for a straight answer. I was wet and pissed that they were screwing around and didn't see the deer, much less shoot one. So dropped it and headed for the truck. It was a few weeks later at home when a classic Bigfoot track was on the TV. My son said, "That's what I saw on the cow path while deer hunting." Me: "What the F? Why didn't you say so?" I don't think it was a person in a suit, as two teenage boys with rifles would have let all the air out of that thing. Crazy dangerous to do that to hunters. I was a U.S. Special Forces medic, demolitions, and sniper training, and I didn't care for much for all the ways they taught us to kill people. But listen to this. There's a couple typos, but list this to show I probably have self-discipline and some other attributes. As such, I've been told I have a sick sense of humor. After this, we referred to the event as the time my son almost got raped by Bigfoot until he graduated high school and left for college. Not much, but very real. Joe Rockstall, Twin Falls, Idaho. Okay, Joe, I get the humor part in the back. We would have said the same silly shit too, right? I just didn't deliver it verbally. I'm sure the way you delivered it verbally to your pen or to your fingers. I got it. I got the humor. And I understand what happened. You put us there perfectly. And there you go. There you go. Similarities? Yep. Some patterns in there? Of course. It moved, I moved. Right? Again. Every time it moved, I moved. And it was frickin' huge. How many people have said that? Now. All right, here's another one. This is titled My Experience. This came in 2020, February 2020. Hey Steve, I live in northern Minnesota. I've been a hunter my whole life and have spent a lot of time in the woods day and night. I'm usually never afraid to go hang a stand in the dark and sit for a couple of hours till light. I was also a combat medic with the Army and served in Iraq. A few years back, I was bow hunting whitetail with a couple of buddies in the Harless State Forest near Holyoke, a couple of hours north of Minneapolis. After dinner at the cabin, I decided to take a walk, just me and my pistol, down the driveway towards the Harless State Forest Road, out to a clearing where I could better see the night sky, as I often do. The cabin is 100 yards from the road. As I approached the road, I looked behind me and saw a pair of glowing eyes off the side of the driveway and about 40 yards away. It looked as if they were coming closer. My first impression was that it was a deer. I had a headlamp on my cap and I turned my head slightly to each side to try to get a better sense of distance. And as I did, it seemed the eyes never stopped glowing. Then I turned off my light and they were still glowing. I then noticed that they were swaying from side to side and getting closer. Again, I fear nothing and I was curious. I started to slowly move toward it. Everything was perfectly quiet. I shined the light at the eyes again and could start to see a huge figure slowly coming at me. I noticed an orange/amber flame-like mist rising off the top of the head. The rest of the body seemed black. Again, it was huge, at least 8 feet tall and 4 to 5 feet wide. I was about 20 yards away. Once I was about 20 yards away, it seemed to back away. I shouted at it, trying to keep its attention, but it quickly and silently disappeared into the woods. This is not the only strange encounter I had in the area. I remember you mentioning one person's encounter having floating lights or orbs around. I and others have seen these and other strange things in the same area. On one occasion, I walked out to the road to take in the night sky, and as I approached the road, a silent aircraft flew about 20 feet over my head, about 30 feet in diameter, with a faint amber light in the middle on the bottom. It was moving slowly and silently. I watched it follow the road for about a quarter of a mile and then disappear. To keep this short, they are trying to keep the general public in the dark about these things. Thank you for what you do, Corey Anderson. Appreciate that, Corey. Pretty chilling thing to have happen and see. I'm not big on UFOs myself. I think more because I don't have them in my life directly. And I don't think I need them in my life directly, but I'm not going to ignore it. I'm not going to ignore the stories. And I think if you think, or no, I shouldn't say if you think, I'm thinking that maybe you may have seen the breath and the color from its eyes reflecting off the breath, maybe to create that look above its head. I don't know, I wasn't there. I'm just trying to, because it's not a common, that's not a pattern yet. Seeing an orange glowing misty color above their head isn't, I don't know if I've had that described yet. That's all I'm saying. And why? Maybe possibly is because of the breath and the eye glow reflecting off its breath around its head. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Either way, I'm glad you emailed in and shared with everybody here. All right? And it sounds like you got a bunch of shit going on there. So stay safe, go with your guts, speak openly, ask questions to who you can, when you can, around your community. And when you learn something new that the people might benefit from, get it to us. Okay, man? I'll share it. Okay? Appreciate you. Question, what should we do? It's the title of this email. Sounds familiar. Did I read this? Steve, first I'll simply say thank you. I have my own story, but that is not important this time. My question is this. What should someone do if they get evidence? Yeah, we did read this, didn't we? Or did we? Well, it's a short one and it's a good question. I'll read it again because I don't remember what I would have said. Steve, first I have my story. My question is this. What should someone do if they get evidence? Where can it be sent? How should it be handled? Who can they call? Consider this if you haven't yet, please. You mentioned that you are working with some people that you trust. Are these the people that could help people that can help with such a thing? Yes. Imagine this. Imagine this. Someone has one run across the road in front of them and the car wins. Who should they call? What should be done? I can only imagine that contacting the regular authorities would cause the evidence to disappear. Yes, it would, and yes, it does, and yes, it has. How many people would be helped by the validation that would come from that the physical evidence right there for all to see, touch, and have their minds blown? Here's the flat out, straight honest to God truth. The DNA evidence has been obtained and looked at and studied. Everything from live capture to dead bodies, to pieces of meat, hair. They've had it. They've done it. It's been done. All right? Just so you know. Do I know that as fact? I'm about 99.9999999% sure. Okay? And yes, we have direct link to these people. If let's just say, okay, I've recently had an email from someone who shared with me that they allegedly found a skeletal remains of one of these beings in British Columbia, and they apparently had its jawbone in their possession for quite some time. It might have been misplaced, but they might have it. I'll be contacting them when I get home too, just so you know. I'll look into that further, that story, the experience, that item. I will look into that further when I get home. I've got the phone number, okay? But anyway, let's just say me. I'm in the timber. First off, no, I'm not going to shoot one of these people if I see one. And if there's anything at all is threatening my life in the forest and I'm armed, they're dead. It's easy. That's simple. But am I going to shoot one of these beings because they're staring at me? No. Am I going to shoot one to try to prove something? No, I'm not. It's been proven. If I came across one, like you say, you blew one over with your truck, it's dead. It's just laying there. Am I going to grab it? Hopefully I have something to test for radiation first, right? I think I'm probably going to videotape my finger in its mouth anyway and show that it's a real item. But let's get back to the question at hand, the body. I don't know, if you ended up with a piece of one of these beings and you're about to go online and talk about it or share it here through me publicly like this, you better make damn sure that whatever it is hidden away from your home before you go online and email or text somebody about it. That's what I'm saying. Because if you come out publicly and say you've got one of these things in your possession, somebody's going to come and bang on your door. 110% they're coming. All right? So if you do if you have come across one of these beings that's died from natural causes possibly, and you want a direct, honest, safe line on getting it to somebody who may have great interest and will share the honest results, yes, I do know those people. Just so you know. All right. Did I read the whole thing? In the event something like this would happen, time would be of the essence. Are you or others that you are working with ready to roll out to help, or is this simply not something you have considered or care to undertake? Thank you for your consideration of this question. And again, thank you for what you're doing for the people. Okay, man, did I say your name in the beginning? I'm not going to say your name, just in case maybe possibly you're fishing right now. And this has already happened. All right? So, I'm not saying this has happened to you, but let's just say it has. You got my answer. There you go. Before you email or text me or anybody in the face of the planet, if you come across something like this, you better make sure it's well hidden away from your property first and nobody knows. That's all I'm saying. Because they're going to come. They're going to come. All right, here is another one. It's titled My Story from Indiana. Dear Steve, first off, I like your approach to the subject of Bigfoot. You have that take no shit attitude that I like and I live by myself. Also, this very night I watched one of your recent videos that you released December 17th, 2020. This involved a man going by the name of Jason who lives in Northeast Indiana. I would like to tell Jason through you that I believe his story 125%. Now to tell you mine. I myself am from Indiana, as well hunted all over the state for years, deer, squirrel, varmints of all categories as well. So I've spent many hours and years in the woods, loving every minute of it as you do. I lived in a small rural town in Northeast Indiana myself for over 20 years, 17 of them as a law enforcement officer for my hometown at the time. It was easy to find land to hunt on when people know what you do for a living and trust you and take care of their property. I hunted the same farm for over 14 years, again hunting what was in season at the time, or varmint hunting. And this farm is where my story begins and took place. This took place Thanksgiving morning, 1994, during firearms season for deer. After being on the job for over 6 years, this is my first Thanksgiving day off, and I had planned to hunt that morning and then go to our family's Thanksgiving dinner. I'd hunted this parcel of the farm for 4 years now and had placed tree stands in several locations in order to hunt the wind. Like many other hunters, I always tried to get in at least 45 minutes to an hour before hunting time, allowing the woods to become quiet after I made my way to one of my stands. This morning, the incident took place right at 5:30 a.m. pitch black. This morning, when I checked the wind currents, the wind was coming up out of the southwest, so I decided to hunt the west side of the woods that day, overlooking a picked cornfield that was tracked up heavy. The woods were maybe 3 acres in size, but butted up against a much larger woods to the north. I was walking in a picked cornfield on the east side of the woods, getting ready to walk through to my tree stand again on the west side. As I was walking in the field, I started smelling a real foul odor, worse than a skunk. It made me stop 20 feet or so from the trail I was going to use. I was to the point of gagging as I stood there. It was so intense. I had no clue whatsoever what it could have been. My mind was telling me a rotten deer that had been wounded and died there. I no sooner thought that than I heard a low-pitched growl coming from the woods just north of me, and at the most 10 or 12 yards away. Being that this was gun season, I was carrying a Mossberg slug gun, 12 gauge, loaded with Brinicki slugs. The shotgun was loaded, but nothing in the chamber. And then I heard snorting sounds. My thoughts then was it was a rutting buck standing just inside the tree line, and that was what I smelled. There was no way I could shoot, as it was not legal hunting hours, but at the same time I did not want to get gored either. I just stood there and watched the area from where the sound was coming from. Another growl, and again snorting. Then I was thinking, okay, a bear has wandered down from Michigan and ended up in my woods. So I yelled, "Get the hell out of here." Then I heard what sounded like Scooby-Doo talking, and almost a laugh. Then it roared, one that I have never heard in person or on any hunting video. I could feel it on my chest, and that was when I knew it wasn't a deer or a bear. I racked around on my shotgun and just stood still, half-ass afraid to move, thinking whatever it was would charge me. Then I watched two trees start. Then I watched two trees start swaying back and forth in about 8 to 9 feet apart, and it roared again. That's when I shot a warning shot into the ground in front of me, and at the same time racked another round in the chamber. I yelled again, "Get the hell out of here, or the next shot's coming for you." The tree stopped shaking, and things got quiet. The whole time I had my shotgun trained in the direction of the trees at low ready in a fighting stance. That's when I heard a tree snap in the same area. Then I heard footsteps and also could feel the thuds as whatever it was walked off to the north. Feeling the ground shake, right? I didn't waste time standing there and started heading back to my truck, which was over half a mile away. To get back to the county road I was parked on, you had to walk down the lane that both the farmer used and electric company. On that lane was about 100 yards of embankment, 10 feet high on both the north and south side of the lane. There was no way I was walking through that section of the lane in the low area. So I walked up onto the south side of it and watched the north side the whole time back to my truck. Once I got back to my truck, I pulled out my Glock 21 and just sat there waiting for the sun to rise so I could see. The whole time asking myself, what the hell did I just go through and what was it? I must have sat there an hour before I could get the nerve to walk back to that same location. Again, walking on the south side of the lane as I made my way back. I was using every caution as I approached the area, checking the wind, sniffing the whole time and glassing the area. Then I heard gunfire and knew there was other hunters in the woods to the north. No smell, No noise or roaring. I walked into the woods where I believed whatever it was had been standing, and then I got a faint whiff of that awful odor. Just not as strong. Still, I was watching my six the whole time, and then I saw the tree that I'd heard snapped. It was a small ash tree, maybe 5 inches around. It was snapped off at 6 foot level. The reason I know this was I am 6'1" and was looking right at it. All I could think was that it had to be one strong son of a bitch to break that tree of that height. I started slowly walking to the north in the direction I heard it walk off in. The woods was full of fallen leaves, and picking up any track was hard. I found 2 only, and I was dumbfounded at what I saw. A very large bare footprint that looked human. I wore a size 11 boot, and the print was 6 inches longer. It looked like a left foot. Then about 5 foot from that one, I seen the second one, and it was the right foot. Again, I was dumbfounded and still wondering if what I was seeing was real. I could see impressions going north. After about 40 yards in, I stopped. I was no longer on the farm I was hunting. I left the woods and went home, got ready to go to our Thanksgiving dinner. The whole drive there, I was pretty quiet. My wife asking me if I was okay. Did I see anything? Because I was home early. I told her no. Too many hunters out there. The deer were spooked. I never told her or anyone else what took place that morning. Being a cop, it could have very well cost me problems with my job, or even being laughed at if word got out. Over the years, I started reading up on Bigfoots and what little was known or being stated back then. The 3 things that stood out the most that I learned was: 1, that they smell like rotten meat, outhouse skunk, and dead animals altogether. 2, the gibberish talk and snorts. 3, the roar they made that you could feel as though it was reverberating inside you. Did I ever see it? No. Did I smell it? Yes. Did I feel the roar and hear the Scooby-Doo voice? Yes. Did I even see it? No. Did I smell it? Yes. Did I feel the roar and hear the Scooby-Doo voice? Yes. I am convinced I had an encounter with a Bigfoot. I still hunted those woods for another 10 years, both bow and gun seasons for deer, along with other varmints. But I never went back without my S&W 629-44 mag in my shoulder holster. I wasn't always legal to carry it during bow season, but I was not taking any chances either. Again, after hearing Jason's story, who has to live somewhere close to where I did, is the reason I'm telling mine now. This is 26 years ago. Could it be the same Bigfoot? I don't know. How long do they live for? How long did they live? Or was this one new to the area? If by chance you still have Jason's email, please pass this on to him, telling him I believe every word he stated. My name is Claude Anderson, and I now live in the White Mountains of Arizona, and I hunt the prairies and run the back trails. I see evidence of them here as well. There is so much game here that it makes sense. Plus, this is the world's largest ponderosa pine forest, and most of that is on Indian reservation. No one is allowed on the res without permission, or you are a native. So there are thousands of acres for them to hide and hunt in here. You use my name if you like, when and if you read this in one of your podcasts. Keep up the good fight, hunt safe. P.S. Could you give me a heads up if you decide to use this email so that I may watch it? I've watched several of them now, each one telling what we know to be true. Like you stated, if you are brainwashed by the media, then you're not open to what really lives in our woods or even in our oceans. All right, end email. Well, I'm sure if you're here, you know I just shared it. Got a screaming kid outside somewhere. Don't know where it is. Somebody's got a pissed off toddler out there. Anyway, there you go. Another member of the Club of No Return. Feeling the roar in your chest. Feeling it. That's gotta suck ass. Anyway, I'm beat. I'm gonna get going. I got a shit pile of stuff I want to talk about here. A lot of things I want to do. I'm gonna have a lot of people come over to the house and speak with me in front of the camera there. Got a couple podcast invites I agreed to do when I get home. I got a lot to do when I get home. So, I think one more day of this, and then we're back. Share my story at howtohunt.com. All right? That's where you get it shared word for word.